Welcome to DSP, back at it again this week after a brief hiatus last week.
Yeah.
But we're back. But one of the biggest names on the Lions roster will not be in 2025. That news coming out earlier today. We thought that we were going to be talking about some OTAs, some great things to look forward to with this team. But the news that Frank Ragnow is calling it a career after dealing with so many injuries throughout his time with the Detroit Lions, a former first-round draft pick. How shocking was that news to get whenever you got it this morning on his Instagram?
It was shocking. I mean, even June isn't safe from the Lions getting bad luck anymore. What is it with like Lions legends just calling it quits earlier in their career? I mean, this is like
we were just talking about before the show. I was saying like, what's the most consequential of the retirements? Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson, or Frank Ragnow? And you could argue it's Frank Ragnow because the team has Super Bowl expectations.
It is Frank Ragnow for sure because those other teams stunk no matter who was on them.
They were so bad that they forced the players to retire. This is not that situation.
In terms of how shocking it was, I think we've all heard the rumblings, especially last offseason, like, is Frank Ragnow going to retire? But there was never really any substance to it. But yeah, it was pretty shocking, and it comes kind of when the Lions feel like their line is most vulnerable, the most vulnerable it's been in a few years. So as the guy who had the highest win total prediction for the Lions, I'm feeling a lot less confident.
Looking at this offensive line, though, because you lost Kevin Zeitler from last year, now you lose Frank Ragnow. So that's two of the starting five of what was the best offensive line in football last year. If you are this team, how do you go about dressing this? Because you could move Graham Glasgow to center, but then you're pretty much dealing with a second-year player in Christian Mahogany, a first-year player in Tate Ratledge, who they drafted in the second round this year. What do you view as the course of action? Do you go outside the franchise and get somebody else? Because this is not a guy that you just replace with somebody off the street. I mean, he had 1,000 snaps last year, gave up 2 sacks.
Yeah. You can't really replace Frank Ragnow. I mean,
no. I mean, he's just a huge veteran presence in that locker room too. That's just going to be gone. And now you look at the offensive line depth. Your interior offensive line is basically backups and rookies, and now you're entering a season where you're going to have to go on, like we've been talking about. You're going to have to go on the road and win these really, really tough games. You need that offensive line. You need to run the ball in these environments. I mean, is Jared Goff going to have time like he did last year? I don't know. That pocket was nice last year for a reason, and I'm really worried because at this stage in the offseason, it's tough to go get a replacement that's even close to a Frank Ragnow, let alone somebody who can do like half of what he did. Graham Glasgow's, he's good, but you pair that with the guards around him, that interior line is going to have trouble. I'm worried.
I just want to address the elephant in the room because you were talking about the two guys they lost, right? Like Zeitler and Ragnow are both gone, and they were probably the second and third best offensive linemen behind Penei Sewell last year. Glasgow and Decker, there were times last year where they were just not good. And I know that those guys are a lot of times dealing with injuries, but it's not like offensive linemen just get a reset every year and then they're going to be healthy all year. Like Decker and Glasgow are probably going to deal with a lot of those injuries again this year. Yep. So I would say like the pessimistic viewpoint of this is that the Lions have question marks at 4 out of 5 offensive line spots now. And the one is maybe the best in the NFL, obviously. But you're talking about a team that has had such a good line and has built this entire Super Bowl roster around that line by investing heavily in running back, by committing long-term to a quarterback who needs the pocket, must be protected at all costs to be effective. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not like out on the Lions, but I definitely think that this is a critical moment in the Super Bowl window.
And I think you have to consider, too, what does it mean for Jared Goff? Because it's one thing with time, but he is the guy. I mean, the center-quarterback relationship is just as important as the quarterback-wide receiver relationship because you are relying on Frank Ragnow, who is an extremely cerebral player, to scan the field and help set up the protection for who is the guy that has the keys to this offense, which also will be a brand-new offense, too. So you add that wrinkle, too, because Ben Johnson was good about putting Jared Goff in the right positions because he knew what he could do. He knew his strengths. Now you have Johnny Morton coming in here, and yes, he has been here before. He knows Jared Goff, but to call the shots with now having to patchwork an offensive line already in OTAs, not an easy feat by any means for this team.
Yeah. You know how every business, every team has those people that you don't realize everything they did until they're gone? we're going to realize so much of what Frank Ragnow did. I mean, I think we know, but it's hard to visualize it. Like you said, scanning the field, being the leader, just the exchange. Jared Goff hasn't taken snaps from another starting center since he's been here. So, because Ragnow plays almost every single game. So, yeah, it's going to be a big adjustment.
And to that point, too, I mean, he sets the tone. You talked about him being a leader in the locker room. The guy played with, a fractured throat a few years ago? I mean, he dealt with toe injuries, it seemed like, constantly. He had a pec injury last year. I believe he missed the Seahawks game, but then came right back in and played with a giant brace on his arm. I believe it was the Cowboys game. That was the game after that Monday Night Football game. I mean, the guy was Detroit. If you wanted a Detroit football player, it is Frank Ragnow, with how tough he is and how he was willing to put it on the line for his team. But if he is going to be willing to come out and say this, that I thought I could play, I thought I could give it a go, because talking to him in the locker room when the season ended after that Commanders game, you got maybe the inkling that it was a possibility, because it's always a possibility for a guy to say, okay, enough is enough. I need to put my body ahead of the game. Yeah. But to see this is very surprising, at least to me.
Well, you'd at least think that decision would have been made, early on, but obviously I'm sure he just tried to make it happen. And at this point just decided not
because
to.
He's done it his entire career. Yeah. He's tried to make it happen his entire career because he knows how valuable not only his position is, but how valuable he is to the success of this offense.
Yeah. I'm sure he thought, I feel terrible now, but after an off season of healing, I'll show up to OTAs and I'll feel good. And this last week must have been like, it is not good for him to be like, I'm calling it quits.
Yeah. It's going to be rough, man. This is a big loss, like just a huge loss, and we didn't see it coming. I mean, in our prep show this morning, we were trying to find a Lions topic to talk about. It hit us right in the face, unfortunately. So.
I mean, it's shocking, but this team still does have a lot of quality players on the team. And the talk of OTAs, as we make a pivot to the positive side for this offense, Jameson Williams entering year 4 this year. I mean, big expectations for him. He said that in OTAs this year, he wants to be a leader. Amon-Ra St. Brown not on the field for the first session of OTAs. But where do you set your expectation for J-Mo? New number?
Traditionally, nobody on this show has been very high on J-Mo in the preseason, but this year I think that's going to change. I think J-Mo could have a big year. He might be the second best receiver on the Lions after Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Well, bold
Maybe.
prediction.
Yeah.
It seems like they're gassing him up a lot. So I don't really know what that means. I think J-Mo's really got to step into this much more reliable, much more consistent wide receiver role. The boomer bust wide receiver is not what we're looking for at this point in a number 2 wide receiver. He had a couple of those games where he had several catches. We need several catches. I think that's kind of what.
And you look at his progression though, because I mean his rookie year, it wasn't even really a rookie year. No. He had a touchdown catch, 41 yards that went for a touchdown, but still recovering from an ACL. Was suspended for the first few games of his second season. We saw the flashes, but we didn't see what we expected because he missed time in training camp too. He had some drops in the preseason, but I think last year kind of set the blueprint for what people expect from Jameson Williams. Now I think that if that is the sample size we're going off of year 3, he said he put on more weight, stronger to go over the middle. Granted, it's 5 pounds, but he said he has put on weight. Dan Campbell, though, said he looked stronger and said that the sky is the limit. Dan Campbell wouldn't go out and just throw those words out there. So that kind of gives some credence as to what the franchise is expecting from him this year, along with the external expectations.
Yeah, Dan Campbell has been very honest with his assessment of J-Mo over the last 4 years. So you do have to take that with a little bit more credence than normal. But, I mean, what we saw from J-Mo last year, I don't know what a step up from him looks like, honestly. Like, I'm pretty much expecting more or less what he did last year because he was pretty consistent. And it wasn't just like either he was catching a 60-yard touchdown or he wasn't catching the ball. Like, there was a lot of key third down plays where Jared Goff was going to Jameson Williams. And I thought that showed a lot of, maturity and progression in his game. And so I think the Lions feel pretty good about their receiving core.
You want me to predict that J-Mo is going to have more catches than Amon-Ra? No.
Catches?
Not going to do it.
Not going to do it?
Yards, touchdowns?
Are we going to wait till training camp to do that
50-yard plays?
Touchdowns, maybe. That's
maybe
the only one, right?
It'll be interesting to see how the new offense works J-Mo in, because Ben Johnson was putting him all over the field. even in the backfield a lot of those reverse sort of trick plays J-Mo was involved in. We'll see if he gets a little bit more of a standard approach as a wide receiver, but he's just so dynamic and fast. So you have to put him everywhere, and he can light up the field at any time. So.
Also, we were talking about Frank Ragnow retiring and that creating and putting more pressure on the quarterback. Maybe we see more quick passes to him.
Sure.
Because a lot of times it was the deep ball or the deep dig or something like that J-Mo would take down the field or make the over-the-middle catch. But you mentioned his speed. I mean, to me, that's a quick pop it in the flat to that guy, let him do some work.
You're saying because Goff won't have any time to throw?
I did not say that, but if the pressure is coming into his face because you have a very new interior offensive line, I mean, including two very young players, if they are the starters this year in Mahogany and Ratledge.
One of the things that made the Lions really stand out to me the last few years is their ability to take those short passes and turn them into big plays. I think a lot of that was Ben Johnson's creativity with the offensive line and also the inherent athleticism of the linemen. Like Jonah Jackson was somebody a couple years ago who was really good at blocking downfield. And then you still have Penei Sewell, but it'll be interesting to see if the Lions can continue sort of that character trait where they're so good at turning small passes into big plays. Because if not, they're going to need J-Mo downfield even more than they did last year.
Mm-hmm.
Man, the more I think about this offensive line thing,
I hate it.
I mean, think of all the plays that Goff made last year with that pocket. I mean, that's his bread and butter, right? If he's under any additional pressure, his whole thing changes. I mean, he can go from like a Pro Bowl game to a let's trade Goff game like that. And if you cannot create that pocket around Jared Goff, what does the offense look like? I mean, really, it's really troubling. And there's no clear answer as we sit here in June. So I don't know.
There is a lot of time. Do you think that they should trade for a center? I mean, because let's be real. If a team has a good center, they don't want to trade him.
Yeah, I mean,
they don't want to get rid of him. They're not going to just say, and
it's not like sitting out there.
And this team has been so good about building through the draft. They did that. I mean, from Frank Ragnow, pre-Dan Campbell, Brad Holmes, that's been a franchise player for them.
Here's what I'll say: they've drafted 4 offensive linemen in the last 2 drafts, so they were a little bit proactive about this situation. So hopefully their history of development under Brad Holmes and Dan Campbell and that entire staff continues, and a couple of those guys become the answer. Because I think you can live with, obviously, Decker and Glasgow. They're going to be starters. Mm-hmm. But if you could develop a couple of those young guys, I feel a lot better about those two being sort of less relied upon.
Yeah, you're right, though. That is the silver lining, is that this Campbell Holmes era has shown that they can develop players. Yeah. And they do have pieces. Yep. We just don't really know
if they're any good.
So like I said, sitting here in June, the answer is very unclear. But you're right. I mean, that's what they are hoping to build this team around, for years to come is just player development. So this is the time to do it, man.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Hank Fraley was a guy who was getting looked at for an offensive coordinator position. He chose to come back. He's a great offensive line coach. If he can mold the pieces that they were able to draft, I mean, might be in good hands. But again, you don't know until players put the pads on, which they won't be doing until mid-July at this point.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. In 5 weeks, hopefully your tune changes.
I don't think my tune can change until the regular season. These guys are unknowns.
Yeah.
And until you see what the protection looks like in September, I mean, I'm not trying to display an overly negative tone, but I do think this is like the one thing that can kind of collapse the house of cards is if the offensive line is porous, right?
And we haven't even discussed the running game. I mean, that is the offense.
Yeah.
And
he was one of the best centers in all of football the last few years, but his run blocking was, I believe, like top 5 according to PFF every single year over the last 3 years.
Yeah. I mean, the key to the Lions' success over the last couple of years, you can take it right down to the run game on offense and their rush defense. Mm-hmm. That has gotten them so many wins, and now you're looking at some adversity.
And the offensive line has really set the tone in both the pass game and the run game.
All those games where they ran out the clock with 6 minutes left, all that stuff, that's all on the line.
Yeah.
Man, Go to commercial, Obi.
Let's go to commercial. When we come back, the Tigers got some big wins against the Royals. We'll dive into that with the White Sox coming up, a winnable series before the Cubbies come up.
That's a fun one.
You're look, your tone entirely changed. And Ken is happy too. There we go. Ken's happy about baseball. Let's roll. All right, much more to come on DSP after the break.